Hi guys, it's Linda. I'm a Stampin' Up demonstrator here in Australia, and today I wanted to show you something really quite cute, but very easy. And it's a technique that's been around for years, but I only just discovered it, so I can't believe I've been actually running classes for nearly 9.5 years, and all this time I have not used this technique until the last couple of weeks. It's called the masking tape technique, and this is actually a little just a little ATC that I did, and you can see the striped colours in the background, but it's actually not the first one I did. The first one I did was actually this one, and you can see the stripes of colour here in the background and a real mottly kind of a look. Now that is actually done with this width of masking tape, and you can see it is quite wide, but if you wanted to do a small piece like this, it's way too wide for that. So what I did was actually use, because I wanted the thinner stripes, you can see these are much thinner, I used some washi tape. Okay, now if you've got a colour washi tape that, you know, most of us have got lots of this stuff hanging around, and maybe some that we're not using, that's ideal for this because it's going to create your background. So you're going to pick your colour choice. In this case I'm using Island Indigo, Pool Party and Smoky Slate. They're the three colours I chose for this. And all you're going to do is you're going to take your washi tape, okay, you open up your ink pad and you actually lay your washi tape straight down over the ink pad. Alright, just rip it off at the other end. Alright, so it's across the ink pad. Now you can rub over it if you don't mind getting your fingers inky, go for it. Otherwise just use a piece of paper over the back and just give it a little gentle rub. Obviously how hard you need to rub is going to probably depend on how inky your ink pads are. Okay, then lift that off. And what I'm going to do is, I like to line mine up on the grid paper. It just helps me to stay nice and straight. And I'm lining it also to make sure I stay straight with the edge of the paper itself. Okay, pop it down so it goes, the colour that I picked up off the ink pad goes beyond both sides, and then just run that down over your finger. You can actually lay all the pieces down and take them off at the end, but I like to do mine one at a time. Very gently pull that off. Now when I was reading instructions for this, they suggested that you use glossy cardstock, and the reason that you would do that is because it's unlikely that you're going to remove the surface of the paper when you take it off. I have found though, number one, we don't sell glossy cardstock anymore. We used to, Stampin' Up used to keep it at one point, but we no longer do. So I had to find something else. The first card I did, that other one I just showed you before, just laying that down again, is this one, and that's on shimmery white cardstock, and I found that's also quite a good surface and quite robust. So, but if you're gentle, you won't take the surface off your paper. So just go slowly. Don't try and rip it off really fast, because that's when you're going to run into trouble potentially. I've even used it on DSP. I used it on the typeset paper, the newsprint, which is, let me show you. So this background here is done same technique. You can see my stripes of colour again, but I've used it over the newsprint. So it's really thin paper and very soft, so when you take it off you need to be very, very careful. That one's not washi, that's actual proper masking tape. But washi will do the same job, especially if you need a thinner strip. So now I'm going with the Smoky Slate. I'm just going to line that edge up with the last edge. Obviously, if you want to have a little strip of white in between, so you can see this one here, I've actually added a little strip of white. So I just spaced my washi tape a little further apart to get that strip. And I might do that on here because I quite like that look. Once again, let's go softly, take that off. Okay, and then I'm going to go back to my first colour. You can use the same washi again, no reason why not. So I laid it back into the Island Indigo. This is the darkest one, so I usually use a bit of paper not to get too much dark ink over the back of my fingers. Oh, there goes the washi, came off with it. That's okay though. And then lay that down, you can see. So I might leave a little gap this time just for a bit of interest. Okay, now a couple of other things to note. I really like this mottly effect. Okay, now if I wanted to, you could even muck around, like with, if you use it on a rough surface underneath, it will actually, some of the bumps in the surface underneath will actually come through in the texture. So you can end up with a really textured look, and it's really cool. I like that. And I'm just going to go straight on with this light colour. And put that last one on. Rub it over. Gently take it off. Okay, and to me, all the little like bubbliness, the white pieces that come through make it really interesting. So you don't really know what it's going to turn out like until you do it. This one here, like I said, this was just straight masking tape. I did exactly the same thing I've just done with the washi, but the 3 and I left a little tiny gap in between to add a little bit more interest. I've used a silhouette stamp. This is Serene Silhouettes, stamped in archival black over the top, and just a strip of glimmer paper and a sentiment at the bottom, and your card is done. That's a super simple card. This is another one that I did with 3 strips of masking tape. I just overlapped them slightly so there's no gap, and you can see a little bit of a mark in between, but I actually think it adds interest to the background. And it actually, all the mottly little bits of white coming through look to me like stars on this one, so that worked really well. I used the kind of eclectic starburst and cut a little glimmer star with my Big Shot and my star framelets. This is actually also a framelit run through the Big Shot with black glimmer paper. That's the Sleigh Ride one. This one again is washi, thinner strips. I did it in the reds and greens to create a Christmas card. This is another one I did with washi, and I actually did my 3 strips with masking tape, but then I went back and added washing tape to it to create like a more multi-faceted background. That's a big word, isn't it? So there's some ideas there. For this little guy, I've actually added a glimmer I cut with the tree punch. That's this one, if you're looking for it. The Christmas tree, I just cut that out of silver glimmer paper and added a sentiment. This one here. So that came together really nicely. And I showed you this before. I just wanted to actually, no, I'll show you another idea. You can see that here we've got this is like the Lost Lagoon, the mottly one. Then I re-inked it and did it again, and of course it came out much darker. I actually thought it was a little too dark. So then this is like a little bonus tip for you. Something that you can do. This is the one that I was talking about. This one was re-inked, so it's really inky. I'm just going to use the back of that piece of white. And this is the masking tape. You've got to be careful when you take the masking tape off that you don't go too fast, because you want it to come off in one solid piece. Okay, so if you have a very inky ink pad and you really like the mottly look of a very, yeah, kind of almost patchiness to give it really a lot of interest, if I go, I'll do it straight on first so you can see the difference. Just say I was to go straight on. Alright, straight on there. Come off. You can see it's quite dark, the Lost Lagoon. Take that off the paper and then do it again. Now I want to show you what a little cool tip to help you achieve something a little bit interesting. And this was kind of an accident that happened the other night. I was teaching this and one of the girls did this and we went, oh, this looks so good. So lie it really gently on your scrap paper. And don't even push hardly at all, but run your fingers kind of over it. If you wanted, you could sort of tap it, but go really gently, because it's actually going to come off on your paper here. But now you're left with this really interesting effect. So if I put this down on my piece of paper, and you'll be able to see the difference. We'll rub that over, take it off, and see how we get this real cool mottly kind of a look, really interesting, which makes a great background for your card. Okay, so hopefully this is a really good technique because you can really play with it. You can do a whole bunch of things. You can crisscross it to make a tartan look. You can do a whole bunch of things with either washi tape or the traditional masking tape. Either of them will work well, just depending on how wide you want your strips, but both of them come off paper quite nicely, so you shouldn't be taking the surface off your paper. If you do start to tear your paper a little bit, just sort of lie it back down and very carefully prise it off. Sometimes that can even make a nice effect. I actually had a tiny bit of paper lift on one of my cards. Of course it's not one of these, it's a different one again, and it actually lifted a tiny bit in here and it gave it a beautiful effect. It looked really nice. Anyway, that's a bit of fun for today. I hope you enjoyed that. This is what I get up to when I'm enjoying myself. I love to play around with new techniques and find different ways to use them. So hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you soon. Bye guys.